understand that when somebody comes in, even if they're struggling with depression or PTSD or anxiety or whatever, there's lots of areas of their life that they've mastered, and they know what they can do in order to diminish those symptoms. Sometimes they just need a little help figuring it out. And that comes through conversation, like mutual back and forth, more so than, well, let me tell you how that works for me. Let me tell you how to fix you. Because every time that in my recovery that someone has told me how to fix me, it's lasted about a week.
Yeah.
But when people have partnered with me or pointed out the fact, like, dude, yeah, you may struggle with X, Y, or Z, but man, you knock it out of the park on A, B, and C. How can we incorporate A, B, and C into X, Y, and Z so that those things aren't as impactful on your life? Because you are rocking it in part of it. Look at what you have accomplished. Again, focus on the strengths, the things that people have done over time. You know, I get veterans that come in all the time and are like, I can't do this. I can't do that. I've never been able to do it. I'm like, dude, man, look at what you did by the time you were 23. Right. Like, seriously. Yeah. You know, I mean, by the time you were 23, you had mastered more skills. And by the time you're 40, you've probably forgotten more things than most people will ever know.
And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and your therapist is dwelling on the negative, fire them.
Find somebody new, brother.
We work for you, not the other way around.
Yes, sir.
I think it's interesting that both of you are touching on, and I love what Jay said. I'm the expert in one person only, and that's me. And I think that there's a lot to be said, though, that there are a lot of people that aren't even an expert on themselves at some point in their lives, where they don't even realize that they've changed. In their minds, they're living like a normal life, but everyone else around them has noticed he's distanced himself. He's closed everybody else out. And I think that that's hard to even, for that veteran to sit there and say, they probably don't even realize it sometimes. And that's hard. So I think that, you know, if you're out there and you don't feel like you're struggling, but you know something's maybe wrong, or you think, oh, everyone's just always hounding me, everyone's always just driving me nuts and bothering me, they may not be hounding you. They might be trying to tell you, hey, we are all noticing that something is a little off, and don't just discard that. If everyone's telling you that something, everyone's asking you all the time, are you okay? Then they're noticing that you don't seem to be okay. And maybe we need to open our eyes and say, how do we approach this person to let them know we're worried about them when they may not even realize that something's up? And that's something that I struggle with, because I can see when people are struggling, but in their minds, everything's good. And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't know how to talk to someone and say, look, bro, I don't think you realize, but, you know, and maybe you guys have a great way that I can learn, because I don't know how to do that.
There's a clinical concept where you help people move through stages of change. And the stages of change are pre-contemplation, which is you don't know that there's a problem. Contemplation, you know there's a problem, but you don't know what to do about it. Preparation, which is, you know there's a problem, you maybe want to do something. Action, which is self-explanatory. And then maintenance, where you've completed the issue and you've changed, right? You've effectively changed, you're maintaining it. And there's two outliers there, which is, one is relapse, which brings you back to somewhere along the continuum. And then denial, where you're actively resisting the idea that you need to make change. And I teach this in a different way. It has to do with pooping yourself and whether or not you smell your own poop. But the idea is that, like, sometimes people are in pre-contemplation and they don't know that they need to make change, but everybody else in their life needs to make change. And there's an old adage in the substance abuse community that talks about, like, you know, if you run into, like, you know, an asshole one day, he's probably an asshole, but if you run into 5 assholes, you're the asshole. So the idea is that, like, if everybody's telling you the same thing, you need to figure it out. Well, the question is that Trey poses, like, how do you help the person become aware of that, right? So how do you move them through the stages of change? One great gift that I was given through grad school is the preface, I wonder if maybe that way you're not telling the person what's up, so that you're eliciting their defensive response, their fight or flight. And I'm putting you guys in the listening audience can't see this, but I'm putting in the middle of my brain where the amygdala exists, where you reflexively, defensively respond with some sort of I don't want to hear that, right? But if you say, I wonder if, it circumvents that fight or flight reflex to say, I wonder if maybe you're a little more down than you normally were. You're just wondering. It's disarming, right? You're wondering. You're not asserting. But if you go, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Hey, are you depressed? No, I'm not depressed. Right. So you say, I wonder if.
Almost make it to where it's their idea to talk about it almost.
That's precisely it. And I'm teaching you and the rest of the audience to be junior clinicians right now, which thrills me to no end.
Trey was talking about folks not recognizing. I mean, with all the training I had when I was at my worst, like deepest, darkest, I didn't recognize it. And all it took was, I'll share it. I was, when I said earlier, my wife was a saint, let me preface that. This is my second wife. She's a saint. Yeah. So I had gotten out of the military, had my daughter, gotten divorced, and was just living crazy, and didn't realize that I was living crazy and just doing ridiculous stuff, man. And my dad, my father, he passed away it's coming up on 4 years ago. He had been married previously before my mother, and he lost his wife to suicide shortly after he got out of the military. One day I had come tearing into the driveway at their house on my motorcycle. Wore a fake helmet to fool the cops because I'm young, dumb, and bulletproof, and helmets suck. And as I was getting ready to leave, my dad just walked out toward the bike with me, and he goes, I buried my wife. I don't think I could handle burying my son. You talk about a kick in the stomach, man. I was going to use another anatomy part, but man, that hit. He wasn't saying anything about me. Like, he wasn't saying, man, are you okay? Mm-hmm. But he told me right then and there what he could not handle. And it was like, dude, what are you doing?
And what he communicated was he loved you.
Yeah. I mean, what the heck are you doing, man? Wake up. And it was effective. It worked, man. It was the kick in the tail that I needed to say, man, you are stupid. Like, you are stupid. You got a kid. You got parents. You got people that actually want to see you be successful. But I needed somebody else to reach me in a point where they didn't say, like, man, you're screwed up. You're doing crazy stuff. Because I would have been defensive. I would have been like, man, my life, let me live it.
Because it doesn't judgmental.
Yeah. I would have been like, my life doesn't affect you. But in that moment, he showed me just what impact my life had on him.
It wasn't judgmental. And he also validated what you were doing. It doesn't come across that way. It's like, hey, I get that you want to speed, but also consider these other people. He's like, I don't want to bury my kid. And you were like, oh. Like, yep. There was no judgment there. It was him stating his own position and communicating in an emotional way, not a logical or judgmental way. And I think we can take a lot from that, honestly. Trey, I think you were going to say something.
No, I was just listening. No, that's something that there's no way that you couldn't have absorbed that and said, no matter how I don't know how to put this. how okay you think you are. You hear a father or a loved one, a sister, a wife, a mother, someone that you respect and you care for, like you said, not directly, not saying that you're screwed up, but saying, I don't think I can handle bearing a child or bearing someone else. I think that that's tough, because I think at some point everyone, and you guys used the word earlier, the vulnerable. I think everyone's vulnerable. We just got to figure out how to chip away at that outer cord. Sometimes it's just direct, like you said. Sometimes that's what people need to hear. Sometimes you have to finesse people, and that's why I'm glad I don't do what you guys do, because I don't know if I have the personality to do that. I don't think I have. I like to think I'm a good person, have a good heart, but I don't think that I could do that. I don't, and that's
so Trey, I'm going to recruit you into the fold, and here's how I'm going to do it.
All right.
My good dear friend and mentor, Christian Conte, and if you guys don't know about him, you should look him up. Conte. He's got a book called Walking Through Anger. He's got a few books, but that's the newest one, and it's talking about his yield theory. But Christian Conte said to me once, if a human being has done a thing, it is therefore human nature. Therefore, you, being a human, have the same nature, meaning the capacity, to do anything that any other human being has done. So that runs a risk. You can do great evil, and you can also do great good. So just because, Jay and I work in the mental health practice doesn't mean that Trey can't. It means that he absolutely can. He's just got to find his own way to do it, and it won't look the same, and that's fine. We got to be mindful of the temptation to do great evil, because that also lies within us. And Carl Jung, one of our great forebears of the profession, talks a lot about, if you don't embrace what he calls the shadow of your psyche, of your mind, you're likely doomed to fall into it. So we want to acknowledge that we can do great, terrible things, but we also can do great, beneficial things. Therefore, Trey, I invite you to join us on this quest to help others. And I think you can actually do it. And the way that you get into vulnerability is become vulnerable yourself. And I think one of the overarching themes that I've noticed throughout malehood, as I will call it, because it's veterans, it's cops, it's firefighters, it's attorneys, it's all sorts of people, sports figures. Weak equals bad, and it's not true. Weak actually is a natural byproduct of being a human. So neurologically, emotionally, you don't get a choice over whether or not you feel something. That is weakness. When you don't have a choice, it's weak. You're weak. You're compelled to obey whatever your neurology tells you. So if the environment flashes something in front of you and you feel something, you don't get a choice. What you do have a choice in is how much and how long you feel that thing. There's where you find your strength. So we need to stop with this narrative that weak equals bad, because when you equate weak equaling bad, every time you feel something from the environment flashing in your neurology, you go, oh my God, I'm sad, or I'm ashamed, or I'm depressed. It's therefore I must be a bad person. Well, turns out so is excitement and joy and surprise and all the fun things we like too, right? You don't have control over those either. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. What it means is that you have to obey what your developmental psychology is telling you, which is respond to the environment. If you feel fear, respond in kind. If you feel surprise, respond. If you feel sadness, respond. It doesn't mean you're bad. And I think we need to knock that out of like male psyche, because we've for too long we've told our kids that if they feel sad, if they feel ashamed, if they feel scared, that they're bad people, and they're not. They're just simply conditioned to respond to environment, and they should do so mindfully, not out of reflex. So welcome to the profession, Trey. I'm going to teach you how to be a junior clinician in no time. And you can validate people's emotions and move forward knowing that we're not bad for feeling